Filip Hrgovic bludgeons Marko Radonjic to defeat in 3 rounds. He dropped him like 100 times. I lost count. Radonjic was one of these obscure unbeaten fighters. It kind of reminds me of the movie Forrest Gump, where he says life is like a box of chocolates, you never know what you're going to get. Well, the same is the case with these obscure unbeaten fighters. You never know what you're going to get. Now, normally you get the likes of a Mark Demori or an Arnold Jurjai, and I guess that's kind of what we got here with Radonjic, but occasionally you'll get an Ike Ibeabuchi. Some may even say a Manny Pacquiao. Right? When he first burst onto the scene, he was an underdog from what I can remember, and again was coming from obscurity. Well, Radonjic did not turn out to be an Ibeabuchi or a Pacquiao. He was way, way out of his depth. You could tell that he was very green. You know, he did not look like a guy that had a lot of boxing experience. I don't know what kind of amateur background he had. As a pro, he had 22 fights going in, but he just looked very, very novice-y. He looked nervous. He was swinging all kind of punches all over the place. He just didn't know how to tackle what Hrgovic was doing. And as Alex Arthur in the commentary pointed out, Hrgovic was standing very side on, and he's a tall man, 6'6", so several inches taller than Radonjic. And the way Hrgovic fights, very upright, very traditional Eastern European style. He is side on and fences with that left hand. And that's not just as a rangefinder, it's also to blind the opponent. As Alex Arthur pointed out in the commentary, Radonjic wouldn't have been able to see much. And that's part of what made him so anxious, because you got this big guy in front of you. He's got his left hand in your face. You can't really see. He's disguising his right hand, and he's bearing down on you. He's maintaining his range, so he's keeping his arms outstretched so that you're at the end of his punches. And when you try to throw anything back at him, and obviously Radonjic's shots were very wide most of the time, but when you throw anything back at him, he takes just a little half step back and your punches are sailing by. You're not landing. So this is creating anxiety in Radonjic at this point, because the guy's bearing down on him. He's stalking him, moving forward, but keeping him at the end of his punches. And he can't see because of the left hand in his face. And so, like I say, Radonjic just started swinging for the fences to try and keep this guy off of him. He did not have the technique. He didn't have the know-how. He didn't have the boxing brain, the boxing skill to be able to do anything in there against Hrgovic other than just swing wildly. And that's what he did. He was down, I think it was in the second round, 4 times in the second, once in the third. So he was down a total of 5 times. None of the knockdowns were particularly devastating. You know, it's not like he got hit with a shot and he was all over the place like an Anthony Joshua. No, he was never that badly hurt like AJ when he got dropped by Ruiz the first time. But I think he was just overwhelmed more than anything. He was hurt, don't get it twisted, but he was just overwhelmed more than anything by the whole occasion, by the skill gap, the ability gap. But credit to him, he kept on trying. Thankfully, in the end, I think it was the referee or the corner made the right decision and they stopped it, because this was only ever going to go one way. Now, Filip Hrgovic, at 29 years of age, with an extensive amateur background, with WSB experience, needs to get a move on, really. And I know they keep saying that he is struggling to find opponents. Well, I'm sure they could get people to fight him if they put up the right amount of money. It all comes down to money. If you're willing to pay, you can get somebody to fight just about anyone. They managed to get people in the ring against the prime Mike Tyson, who was one of the most intimidating heavyweights of all time. With Hrgovic, they're just not paying enough money. So Sauerland, DAZN, whoever's involved with Hrgovic, they need to stick their hands in their pockets. They need to get their checkbook out and maybe take a hit, maybe take a loss on a show in terms of paying, overpaying an opponent, bringing him over to wherever they're going to fight and getting him to take on Hrgovic. That's what they're going to have to do, because you look at Hrgovic's record thus far, there's nobody on it. The biggest name he's got on there is what? Eric Molina. We know Eric Molina just got beaten by Fabio Wardley. So Hrgovic is doing himself no favors by fighting this level of opposition. Since 2017, it's now 2021, right? Back end of 2021, and he hasn't fought anybody really with a pulse yet. So that's not good. And as experienced as Hrgovic is or was as an amateur and in the WSB, you can get into bad habits when you're constantly fighting poor opposition. They say steel sharpens steel. Well, you can get kind of a little bit soft when you're taking on puddings all the time, mentally. And you can train as hard as you want in the gym. You need proper fight experience against people that can test you in a proper fight. That's how you keep your level high. That's how you keep the steel sharp. So it is a bit concerning what's going on with Hrgovic here. This was, okay, it says International Boxing Federation International Heavyweight title. Was it an eliminator? Hopefully this wasn't a final eliminator. It doesn't say so there. Because I do know that Hrgovic was supposed to fight a final eliminator against Michael Hunter, wasn't he, for the IBF? Which obviously didn't happen because Michael Hunter pulled out. Yeah, what's going on with that? Is Hrgovic going to get the mandatory fight, the final eliminator fight against somebody, so he can become mandatory for AJ, who's currently the IBF heavyweight champion? Or is something else going on? I don't know. Maybe somebody can tell me who's listened to the latest Kalle Sauerland interview. I know Hrgovic was actually interviewed, I think it was on IFL, next to Kalle Sauerland. Maybe he spoke about it there. I didn't watch it all the way through to know. But yeah, all I can tell you is needs to get a move on. Again, 29 years of age. It's not terribly old as a heavyweight, right? Heavyweights tend to mature in their 30s, most of them, particularly the bigger guys. But still, you know, when you see the likes of Joe Joyce, and Hrgovic obviously fought Joe Joyce in the WSB, lost that fight. He's been talking about Joyce. But when you look at Joyce's career, he's been moved a lot faster than Hrgovic, hasn't he? And they have similar amateur backgrounds. You'd really want to see Hrgovic being moved the way that Joyce has been moved. Joyce is already mandatory. I mean, yeah, Hrgovic is in a similar position rankings-wise, at least in the IBF. But look at the guys Hrgovic has been fighting compared to the guys Joyce has been fighting. You know, Joyce beat Daniel Dubois. Joyce at least fought, I don't know, Berman Stavern. He fought Brian Jennings. That was a good fight for him. Carlos Takam in his last outing. These are better people than Hrgovic is fighting. Needs to look at what the management are doing there. Sauerland, and I know Eddie Hearn's involved to some degree with Hrgovic, although I'm not sure the extent of his involvement. Need to get a move on with the guy. Need to up the level of opposition. Let's hope in his next fight they can put him in with somebody that actually knows what they're doing. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below about everything I've talked about in this video.